Hey, what's going on, guys? This will be my review of Superman Unbound, the latest in the DC animation direct to home video release. And, when I first saw the trailer to this, I was like, oh, I don't know about this. Because after Dark Knight Returns, which I think should be the standard for how they do these movies in terms of quality, and then I saw this. I saw the trailer to this. I was like, I don't know. That looks like it's gonna be kind of mediocre. Now, this is based off the Superman Brainiac comic by Jeff Johns and Gary Frank. Now, I remember liking this story a lot in the comic. It's been a while since I've read it, so I don't know all the details that were missing and all of that. But I do remember really liking the comic and really enjoyed it. I guess I should talk about the animation and art style since I'm already started on that. Well, it's decent. It's not as bad as Superman versus the Elite, where Superman versus the Elite is a really good movie, but the art style is such a put off, and it's like, oh, it just looks terrible. But here, it's not as bad. Like, there are certain angles where the camera zooms in on like Clark's face, and it's like a frontal shot. I'm like, those shots look really good for Clark or Superman. And I'm like, yeah, I can really dig that. Like, I think overall the character designs are pretty good. They're not awful, they're not great, but they're pretty passable. Superman looks good. He looks good as Clark. Lois, I think, was a really, really interesting in terms of looks. Like, she looks really. When I first saw pictures of her, I'm like, wow, she looks like a rocker chick or something. But I like what they did with her character design in here. She looks really interesting to me. Supergirl Kara, she looks fine, I guess. I mean, there's not really much of a dramatic change in her look. Um, there's like some weird like coloring with this. Like, it's not weird, but it's definitely. Clark's costume was like blue. They did a good job of distinguishing Clark's costume from Kara's shade of blue. Like, Kara's blue was like a little bit darker than Clark's, and I thought that was pretty well done. You know, I really like the design for Brainiac in here. He looks fucking awesome, man. Brainiac looks so cool in this, and it's kind of disappointing that they did this movie as an animated feature, because I was hoping if Man of Steel, does well, that they would take this story and they would do a movie, and they would, take this Brainiac design from the comic and put that into the film. But they did an animated movie on it, and that's cool. But he looks awesome in here. He just looks great. I really like what they did with him in this film, and in the comic too. I really liked it as well. Uh, the drones and everything look cool. But yeah, the art and it's a pretty fairly decent looking film in terms of art and animation. They didn't overdo the CG and the CG parts, like with the cars and stuff. It wasn't overdone. Like, they did it with Brainiac's ship. They did it with a couple of helicopters. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. That's cool. They didn't overdo it like they done with some of the other films where it just looks so cheap. And that's kind of the problem with these films. I feel like they can do better in terms of animation. Like, I just feel like they could really amp it up. Really take it to the next level. But these are direct to home videos, and these don't make a lot of money, so I can understand why the animation isn't like mind blowing. But for what they, for the budgets and the time frame that they're given, they do a pretty decent job with these. So I'm done with the artwork and stuff like that. I guess I'll talk about the voice acting. Voice acting was really good in here. There's not a voice in here that annoyed me. Matt Bomer as Superman, Clark, great. He sounded great. I've seen pictures of him too. I'm like, wow, he really looks like Clark. He really has that Superman-esque thing going. At least the Clark Kent part. He does. The voice for Superman in here is just great, though. I don't have a problem with that at all. There's one point where he really does a good job of distinguishing Clark from Superman. and like his voice goes from like this high pitched voice into like this low voice. I'm like, okay, I like that, but it's not consistent. It's kind of annoying, but what can you do? You know, uh, Stana Katic as Lois Lane, great. She does a good job as Lois. Didn't have a problem with her. The dialogue and stuff in here is really, really well done with her, and she does a good job in delivering the lines. John Noble as Brainiac. I love this Brainiac, the way he sound. I know a lot of people will like, I want the Brainiac from the animated series. Yeah, that Brainiac's cool, but I like this Brainiac's voice. This is how I kind of more picture how Brainiac sounds when I'm reading a comic, based on the comic Brainiac. Just his voice just really brings it to that character. He brings that character to life. Does a good job in here. Molly C. Quinn as Supergirl, great. Another good voice. Didn't have a problem with her at all. She does a good job with, displaying Kara's more rebellious side. And I'm happy that they didn't overdo the rebellious thing with Kara, because I was like, okay, we should be kind of past that with her character. So I'm happy that it's well balanced with her character, and the voice acting again was spot on. But yeah, everybody in here did a good job with the voice, and I didn't have a problem with anyone. Now the quality of the film itself, there's some things that bothered me, like they took some things out that I thought should have been in there, like the death of Pa Kent. I thought that should have been in there. I was looking forward to seeing that scene in here because that's a very dramatic scene in the comic. And I'm like, oh, why'd you guys take that out? Because, there's blood in here and stuff, right? And I'm like, okay, they're going to go for some, death scenes. And I was kind of hoping that they would show Pa Kent dying, and that would have been a good dramatic scene for Clark, at the funeral and everything. I was really disappointed that they took that out. I think it really could have added to the film. Another thing is, there's one part where Clark defeats Brainiac in the comic, which I really like. And after Brainiac's killed Pa, Superman goes to, bring down the house on Brainiac, and he beats the crap out of him. And then, like, Brainiac's locked up, and Clark has this thought in his head, and they show it in the comic. And he's beating the crap out of Brainiac, and he just kills Brainiac. And he doesn't in a very gruesome way. And I was hoping that they would have that scene in the film. It was a really good scene where Clark kind of contemplates on killing Brainiac. And I loved how they showed that in the comic, because it showed a more human reaction for Superman. I was like, that's a great scene. I hope they put that in the film. Wasn't here. Very disappointed with that as well. That should have been in here. Really would have added something to, the movie. The final fight between Brainiac, I thought was good how they did it in the film, but I was hoping for a little bit more of a oomph to it. I was hoping for a little bit more of just a more Superman-esque fight. It was a good fight, but I wanted some more, trees being knocked down, some more, fist pounding, just more Superman like stuff. I wanted to see more. What's the word I'm looking for? More finesse to the fight. Maybe that's the right word. But the fight itself was decent. It just could have been longer. That's what I'm trying to get at. It should have been longer, and it should have been more. It should have been more exciting. Should have been more happening with the fight. But what they did in here, I was great. What they did in here, was great, because it showed a more smarter part of Clark. Same thing with the Superman versus the Elite final thing when he, brought down the house on Manchester Black. It showed a more smarter side of Clark, and I like that. And they did that in here as well. I was like, great, that's good, because I like that part of Superman. It shows that he's not just a big dumb brute that likes to just punch stuff, and he doesn't really calculate anything. Because the guy is Kryptonian, he's got Kryptonian knowledge, he's got a lot of knowledge, and he's smart, and I'm glad that they were able to display that in the film. So I give them a double thumbs up for that. you know, I guess maybe, I don't know. There was a scene in here where Supergirl is looking at one of Lois's colleagues, and she makes a joke about the colleague having like fake breast, like implants. I thought that was a funny scene. I thought they should have put that in here because they had the guy who was like, hitting on Lois Lane, and there was a scene in a comic where Superman like uses his eye laser and he breaks the chair and the guy falls out of the chair. They put that in here. I was like, okay, where's the part with the chick with the breasts? What's her name? Kat. Her name is Kat, and she was like really annoying Supergirl, and I thought that her back and forth with Supergirl was funny in the comic, but they should have put. I mean, they could have put that in here, but I don't know. I can see why they wouldn't because it's like, oh, a sexual joke. But I'm like, you guys are doing the violence. Why not just do that too? I thought it was extremely funny in the comic. Maybe it didn't need to be in the film, but if it was me, if I was directing that, if I was directing the movie, I would have put that in the movie for sure. But other than that, yeah, it's really good. I give it an 8 out of 10. Blood drops. I think it's not as good as Superman versus the Elite. I think Superman versus the Elite tackles much more deeper things and much more things that make Clark think about his morality and stuff like that. Here, he's kind of got the same thing, but it's not as it's not as deep as it was in Superman versus the Elite. I mean, I like the relationship that they were doing with Clark and Lois, where Lois is like, why don't you, be more open for our relationship? Stop trying to hide it too much with the Clark side of things, and Clark and her going back on that. I thought that was well done with their relationship. So, there's some things that really kind of were interesting with Clark's character in here, but not as well done. Well, not as, like I said, not as deep as Superman versus the Elite, but it's still really, really interesting. There's some things in here I think a lot of people are going to like that don't just want, guys punching each other and stuff like that. People who like more of the intellectual side of superhero stories. So, yeah, like I said, 8 out of 10, blood drops for me. I'm going to leave the video off here. Bloody Days, Gory Nights. I'll catch you guys next time. And the next film is going to be Flashpoint Paradox. I'm wondering how that's going to turn out. So, yeah, peace.